Welcome to RPGamer's review of Metal Slug Tactics. This review was read by JC Servant, written by Delander, and the video edited by Her Frog. There's always some trepidation when adapting a beloved franchise into a new medium. Trying to figure out the best way to honor the original creation while also spinning it into something new takes a mix of creativity and ingenuity to make it work right. Like Studios' Metal Slug Tactics mostly gets things right in its attempt to spin a run-and-gun action franchise into a roguelike grid-based tactical RPG. The core gameplay mechanics and characters are there, but there's more that could have been done with the storied franchise. What results is a fun title that grows old as the same routines are made, and an incentive to try new strategies are only superficially there. Series villain General Morden is at it again. After escaping from prison, the crafty rebel leader has taken over the neutral cities of Sirocco. From there, he has sent 3 of his commanders to take over the surrounding zones: desert, jungle, and desert tombs. These zones, yes, 2 of which are identical except for the presence of undead enemies, give players a random starting location and puts them through 3 different battlefields, fulfilling objectives until the enemy boss descends to stop the hero's advance. Bosses and the commanders are plucked from Metal Slug history and are a treat to see glossed up in a tactical setting. Each zone takes at most an hour to complete, and players have to replay them often, starting with the same basic setup each time in order to find Morden's cronies to prevent his escape. Metal Slug as a franchise has always had a unique look about it. From characters to enemies, there's something memorable about how the visuals capture the look of 90s arcade games, and this style continues with Metal Slug Tactics. There are 8 PF squad heroes from past titles available to control, but the wonderful character design feels a bit wasted. Their abilities are varied, and they stand out in a gameplay sense, but beyond a few words back at home base, they never get to showcase any personality. Orders from home base and generic banter with enemy commanders are all the personality quirks that the squad gets a chance to showcase. Each biome contains a few generalized objectives for the Peregrine Falcons to complete. Most of these battlefields require players to defeat the enemies within, as well as destroy convoy vehicles or protect Mainstay Rumi as she travels with supplies. That's generally it for main objectives, though occasionally side ones can include designated targets, surviving a time limit, or using a specific character to gain kills. Overall, these map objectives keep things just varied enough to make gaining experience fun until the area boss descends. The roguelike atmosphere doesn't feel as problematic in the random missions because the variety keeps things interesting enough, unlike the boss fights. The noteworthy exception to this is one specific mission in the Desert Tombs, where players have to defend stationary miners and prevent undead mummies from reaching them. There's a sense of frantic anger trying to preserve these miners, for if 2 of the 5 die, the run is over. Rewards for completing objectives range from additional weapons or ability upgrades to more reinforcement radios. That's the ability to revive during combat. Other assets are fun yet overpowered upgrades that can be used anytime during a fight and can range from healing the party to summoning the Metal Slug. There's some joy to be had from moving around the tank to mow down enemies in droves with minimal worry. Assets are relatively rare and can bail players out of a jam when presented with a difficult situation. Capturing the essence of a run and gun in a traditionally slow-moving genre like tactical RPGs sounds like a conflict in terms. That's where the beauty of Metal Slug Tactics comes into play, as running and gunning is still very much how to succeed. Perching characters behind cover will cause a quick game over. Playable characters gain adrenaline points to use on skills from zipping around the battlefield, as well as dodge points, which help minimize damage. This makes for a fantastic reversal of expectations as players move long distances to avoid being sitting ducks, while also trying to keep the squad close enough together to maximize sync attacks that occur automatically when enemies are in range of multiple party members. This novel approach adds a new layer of strategy, as some battlefields involve whirling around the enemies, taking pot shots at them, while others are easiest to complete with a mad dash to the objective. Juggling between movement, teamwork, and dishing out damage is a wonderful strategic mix to discover. It does make waiting to finish off bosses and commanders more difficult because of the constant onslaught of reinforcements prevents methodical gameplay. There are definitely moments when sacrificing a team member is the best answer to ensure victory, which doesn't hurt anything long-term since the party members all reset to full health after completing each battlefield. Boss and commander fight arenas shift in different ways. The first involves a series of floating platforms with a countdown that when it reaches 0, a big portion of the map submerges into water, killing everyone still aboard. This isn't fully a race against the clock though, as new platforms off the side pop up full of new enemies every few turns as well. The other bosses will just shift the existing battlefield after doing a powerful attack. These attacks have to either be dodged by hiding behind a giant metal shield or by positioning properly to avoid falling endlessly when the boss smashes through a new level. Figuring out the easiest way to take down these bosses while avoiding their varied super weapons that shift the landscape is thrilling the first couple of times. Excitement turns to tedium when the bosses are fought over and over, with the same health against party members using similar movesets set to take them down the easiest. Once the challenge has been removed through repeated success, these fights end up taking less time, which diminishes these wonderful mechanics. There are ways to tinker with characters to try and freshen them up. With 8 different active skills, 13 passives, and 4 different weapon loadouts for each party member, there are plenty of ways to mix and match them. A loadout will have a weapon with infinite uses, another with special ammo, an active ability, and 2 passive abilities. Different loadouts are easier to work with the driving force being that balance of active skills is not quite right. Some skills are notably less useful than others, and picking them up at level ups, where players can choose from one of 3 new skills or an upgrade to an existing one, feels like a selection wasted. By the end of a full run, a few abilities will likely be at their most powerful forms, especially when accompanied by synergistic passives. With the balancing, these abilities can get so powerfully broken that bosses can be down before they even know what hit them, and there's little to discourage players from using alternate methods once they have been uncovered. Metal Slug Tactics has a lot of great discovery moments. Figuring out how to make the most of the characters and learning their movements is great at first. There's no real incentive to put in that extra effort, and these final parts feel like a traditional grind, which gets frustrating with its roguelike structure and the same starting point each time. Whether it is similar locations, objectives, or the same boss fights, there's nothing really new to see after the first few hours. This leaves unlocking new characters and loadouts or shooting for the best ending as the only reasons to continue playing. Since there's minimal story and no Easter eggs to collect, it quickly feels like things are just spinning their wheels. The sights and sounds of Metal Slug are found everywhere in Metal Slug Tactics. Everything is an ode to the prior titles in the franchise, from the weakest enemy to the largest boss. There's a connection to the nostalgic past here. The care put into making the smaller pixel animations feel like their larger counterparts in this run-and-gun entry is commendable. Bosses and character portraits are done with care, and it feels very much like a proper part of the franchise. There are only a few environments and enemy designs, so there's a sense of polish through minimalism at work here. The soundtrack is also filled with 90s arcade anthem replicas. Each track brings funk and pulse-pounding hype to simultaneously remind those of the quarter-devouring days of the past, while also introducing people to that sensation those older titles used to have. The sound effects similarly match this intensity, and it's hard not to smile when the announcer calls out the game title or character's name when they are chosen for the team. Metal Slug Tactics is a title built on discovery and then repetition. Running and gunning in a tactical sense is evoked wonderfully in the presentation found here. Unfortunately, the short gameplay loop brings things down as limited boss variety and minimal incentive to try something new means that this presentation gets lost in the monotony. A bit more variety or difficulty in recreating overpowered party members would lead to something great here. What is here makes for a worthy addition to the Metal Slug franchise that luckily does not need quarters to play through time after time. RPGamer gives Metal Slug Tactics a 3.5 out of 5. For more details, hit up the link in the description below. For more video content, subscribe to the channel, follow us on Twitch for daily streams of your favorite RPGs, join in the discussion at rpgamer.com/discord, and for the latest in RPG news, head over to rpgamer.com.